In the 7th year of marriage with Gu Shiyan, he went to the bed of other women. This time I did not call to question, silently left the divorce agreement, carrying all the luggage to leave the home. But he did not think so, and sent kissing photos with other women to threaten me. Have the guts this time, you do not serve soft. I hung up the phone calmly and pulled the plug on all his contacts. A month later, Gu Shiyan couldn't help but take the initiative to come to my house. But it was my new husband who opened the door. He finally got anxious. On the 7th anniversary of Gu Shiyan and I sent a text message to Gu Shiyan asking him to come to the restaurant as soon as he got off work. It's not easy to get a reservation at this restaurant, so I made a reservation a week in advance, and Gu Shiyan was quick to agree. Before 6 o'clock, Gu Shiyan told me to have a short meeting and that he would definitely come before 6:30, and I also asked him to go to the jewelry store by the way to bring over the pair of rings that I had designed earlier. After all, we have been married for 7 years. The previous pair of ring material is not precious, is pure silver. Now the days are better. Gu Shiyan, also in the business world, naturally want to wear a ring in line with his status. But I sat in the restaurant, waited until more than 9 o'clock. Guests came and went one after another. I looked at the watch again and again. Until 12 o'clock, the waiter kindly reminded me that they were closing. I withered sitting all afternoon, and now my legs are a little numb. I called Gu Shiyan, and the other side has been unanswered. My mood is a little low. I still remember, just married. Gu Shiyan will not give up any opportunity to spend the holidays with me. Just his work is getting busier and busier and more perfunctory to me. In the 4th year of marriage, we were left with only the anniversary. The 7-year itch. This word makes my heart cannot help but worry. Just out of the restaurant, I saw Gu Shiyan and a woman walked into the hotel next door arm in arm. I stood in the wind, not yet winter, but feel the evening wind this harsh. I couldn't believe it, took out my cell phone, zoomed in, zoomed out again. That side face I was too familiar with. It was the face I had looked at countless times every night for 7 years. Ghostly, I pressed the shutter. I never thought that Gu Shiyan banquet betrayed me, not to mention that it would be on such a special date. Extremely eyeing the two backs getting farther and farther away, I in the end got off my feet and fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. I married Gu Shiyan because of my family's favor, when my father saved Gu Shiyan's grandfather. That's right, saved with his life. Gu Shiyan's grandfather not only gave me the money of the orphaned daughter and widowed mother, but also tried to cultivate my education. Fortunately, my grades were very good, and I was able to get into the same university with Gu Shiyan. After graduation, Gu Shiyan's grandfather directly made the decision to let me marry Gu Shiyan, to which Gu Shiyan did not oppose, even instead of me very good. Just like in school, everywhere to take care of me, but also to help me back. Those who looked down on me were Gu Shiyan driven far away. I thought Gu Shiyan liked me. It is the Gu family's family motto not to cheat, and previously Gu Shiyan had assured me that even if he died, there was no way he would cheat. Now looking at such a scene, my mind went blank. I don't know how I got home. I opened my cell phone, but I saw an unfamiliar number send me a photo of 2 hands interlocked. The pair of rings that I had carefully designed sparkled. With the text, "I'll take your ring, thank you." I froze in place with my phone, letting the blade of the knife churn my heart. That's right, I'm a jewelry designer. This pair of rings is I spent a year, carefully drawn out the design, the world's unique design, carrying so many years of my crush on Gu Shiyan and emotions. When I first liked Gu Shiyan, no one knew about it. I thought I hid it well, but when I learned that I was going to marry Gu Shiyan, I told him everything. I don't know if it's my illusion, but I didn't see any surprise on Gu Shiyan's face. He smiled lightly as always, just held my hand and said to me, "I will be good to you for the rest of your life." Even if at that time Gu Shiyan's hand was not warm at all. I sat down powerlessly on the sofa, and that number sent me a message again. Do you know who I am? I'm Gu Shiyan's first love. Now that I'm back, you can step aside. First love. I clearly remember that after Gu Shiyan finished his college entrance exams, he once went abroad for a period of time. We didn't have any contact during that time, but some people rumored that Gu Shiyan had a girlfriend abroad. The details of which Gu Shiyan did not say. I did not ask, after all. At that time we are nothing, but not qualified to eat the vinegar, only the most sour. After Gu Shiyan came back, we resumed the usual mode of getting along. For that so-called girlfriend, no one mentioned again. Gu Shiyan's mind is very heavy. Even after 7 years of marriage, I have never really understood him. He does not seem to like to express his true thoughts. Over the past 7 years, I've been feeling my way across the river, penetrating Gu Shiyan's preferences little by little, and trying to behave as well as I can to keep him from getting sick of me. But now, there was someone who could make Gu Shiyan break his own bottom line and abandon me, the wife of 7 years of dirty chaff. I squeezed my cell phone to death and didn't even have the courage to call Gu Shiyan. I calmly called my lawyer and asked him to print out the divorce papers for me, and tantalizingly went to pack up the things that belonged to me in this house. This apartment was bought by Gu Shiyan with the first bucket of money he made and given to me, and the name is also written in my name. But for 7 years, I have been living in this apartment. Walking around every corner of the apartment reminds me of all the little bits and pieces, how I loved Gu Shiyan, and how careful I was, and how Gu Shiyan treats me. In the eyes of outsiders, Gu Shiyan treats me very well. Only I am the only one in his eyes. But only I myself know clearly, between us, he is always almost something. What he does, all is routine. After I put the apartment up for sale, I left the place. As for Gu Shiyan, he didn't come back for the night, and there was no news from him. It's also true that when your first love comes back, it's natural for you to be full of joy together. But so strange, no news of Gu Shiyan. I surprisingly not so crazy, perhaps 7 years of time, enough for me to accept the fact that Gu Shiyan does not love me. When I was in the studio, I had to go to Lin City to meet a client at short notice, and I realized that I seemed to have left my ID card at the apartment. When I went back, everything in the apartment was still the way I left it, with not the slightest trace of having lived there, and when I looked at the tidy apartment, even my bitter smile seemed pale. The divorce agreement is still lying quietly on the coffee table in the living room. I stared at those pieces of paper, froze for a long time. It's been a week. What kind of magic does that woman have that can make Gu Shiyan so enamored? Forget it, I was already planning to get a divorce, and who Gu Shiyan was with or loved didn't have anything to do with me anymore. When I found my ID and turned to leave, I heard the sound of the door opening, and my eyes somehow collided with Gu Shiyan. Gu Shiyan looked as if nothing had happened. There was no change from usual, only the coldness in his eyes was even more prevalent. What are you doing? A simple question. I knew Gu Shiyan was just asking casually. He wouldn't really worry about me. Just like once I went on a business trip, afraid of Gu Shiyan is not accustomed to, especially send a message with him to say a word. Gu Shiyan just faintly replied to him, the tone with detachment. That half a month, Gu Shiyan did not ask me where I was specifically. Meal habits are not accustomed to. As if I am just a dispensable wife, in addition to the love between us. Is that a legal effect of the certificate? I also faintly returned a sentence. Business trip. Gu Shiyan froze for a moment. In the past, when he came home, I would always enthusiastically go up and ask for a kiss or hug. Even if Gu Shiyan is reluctant, I will play the trick every time to get what I want to get. This time I was cold and distant, which made Gu Shiyan freeze for a moment, but he only hesitated for a moment. Even though I was used to it, my heart still tightened uncontrollably. The pair of rings you wanted. Gu Shiyan took out a jewelry box and placed it at the entrance hall, then bent down to change his shoes. I suddenly thought of the pair of rings I designed with my own hands. I hadn't even worn them myself before they were worn by someone else, and couldn't help but be flooded with nausea. I lowered my head and looked at Gu Shiyan's hand. It was empty without the ring I had worn before. Why aren't you wearing a pair of rings? This was a tentative question, but I saw Gu Shiyan's body stiffen, and immediately answered again faintly. Didn't you buy a new one? that one was lost. Lost, a dense pain came from my heart. Before, when Gushir Yan and I got married, his family's company had a problem with its financial chain and didn't even give me a wedding. This pair of rings was still given to me by my teacher when I joined the workforce and I was still an assistant. Although it wasn't expensive, it was very thoughtful. I do want to change, but did not think to throw away, after all, also witnessed our 7 years of affection. Did you really throw it away? Or was I afraid that Geng Shui would see it? If it were normal, I would have had a big fight, but now there's no need. Do you want to make a scene with me even about this kind of thing? Gushir Yan wrinkled his eyebrows impatiently, probably because I was silent for too long. He thought I was going to have a fit. Gushir Yan knew better than anyone how much I cherished this pair of rings, and when I accidentally lost them when I went to take a bath earlier, I almost didn't stir up the entire bathing center. Even the police were alarmed. When a group of people helped find it and saw that it was made of sterling silver, they gave me sideways glances. They didn't understand that I was a member of the Gu family, worth over $100 million, and that I could even alert the police for a sterling silver ring. At that time, when Gushir Yan arrived, he saw that I had made such a big commotion and was a bit disgusted. He reprimanded me. It's just a broken ring. What are you so excited about? Now what do you want to buy that isn't there? I was so aggrieved that I answered Gushir Yan directly with red eyes. You put it on me with your own hands. How can you lose it? Gushir Yan didn't seem to be able to understand my fussiness in the slightest, and waved his hand, leaving me alone on the field. I knew that Gushir Yan was feeling that I had disgraced him. In the past, as long as Gushir Yan showed such an expression, I would always come forward and raise my hand to smooth out his frown. I was so afraid that Gushir Yan would get angry, just as I had always been a small submissive in this relationship. I was more afraid of losing Gushir Yan than being aggrieved. Nowadays, I didn't care. I let out a cold laugh. There's no need to make a scene. Do with it what you will. After saying that, I smoothly threw the new pair of rings into the trash. I won't want what others have worn. I'm too dirty, and I won't use my heart and soul to fulfill others. Probably because what I did angered Gushir Yan. He casually copied a ceramic doll at the entrance hall and dropped it on the floor. Alino, what are you mad about again? Who are you losing your temper with? Isn't it just that I didn't spend my anniversary with you? As for making a big deal out of it, think more. Who gave you your peaceful life? The loud noise scared me. The ceramic shards scratched my calf. Beads of blood bubbled up from the wound. Surprisingly, I couldn't feel any pain. In the beginning, this ceramic doll was something I dragged Gushir Yan hard to color on Valentine's Day 3 years ago, and even though it wasn't that pretty, it was one of the few objects we had completed together. Suddenly remembered that I and Gushir Yan feelings like this fragile ceramic doll, as long as the quiet put still can be safe and sound, but cannot withstand any shaking. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. I picked up my bag and casually sent the photos and screenshots of Geng Shui's provocative messages to Gushir Yan, a series of operations in a smooth flow. Gushir Yan looked down at his cell phone. I watched his face turn pale a little. I sneered. In the past, when I loved Gushir Yan, even if he did something wrong, I didn't want to make things so embarrassing, and I also wanted to give Gushir Yan the decency to stay. Now there is no need. Not waiting for Gushir Yan to speak, I continued. The divorce agreement is on the table. I signed it when you set a time we go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the divorce license. I was just about to leave, but I was caught by Gushir Yan's wrist. What do you mean? I'm just catching up with my friends. Do I need to go so far as to get a divorce? You're always making a big deal out of it. Do you know I'm tired of being married to you? The boredom in Gushir Yan's eyes overflowed, as if I was the one who did something wrong, not him. I laughed coldly. A hot pain came from my wrist. I struggled desperately, which was drawn out. Catching up on old times all night, huh? Was it hard to send me a message telling me not to wait for you at the restaurant? Is my ring someone else's pleasure to wear? If you're tired, then leave. With that, I left without looking back. the door slamming loudly. I wasted 7 years of my life, and all I got in return was Gu Shiryan's sophistry. Even if he was really just catching up with Geng Shui, did he not have the most basic sense of boundaries? Even in order not to let Geng Shui sad, he threw away the original belongs to the two of us of the ring, but also randomly let Geng Shui shot 2 people wearing my design of the ring to take pictures. Without Gu Shiryan's connivance and acquiescence in all this, how could Geng Shui dare? If I didn't look at Gu Shiryan's cell phone, how did Geng Shui find my contact information? In the evening, I received a WeChat from Gu Shiryan, a photo of him and Geng Shui kissing, and their expressions were engrossed, not like a posed photo. I thought I would be hard. I also thought I would not be able to control it. The strange thing is that I have no waves in my heart. I did not reply. After half an hour, Gu Shiryan a phone call in. Originally, I did not want to answer. On second thought, what if people just want to talk to me about the time to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau? Alino, are you sure you want a divorce? Gu Shiryan's angry voice came through the receiver, and I froze for a moment. Could it be that Gu Shiryan didn't send me this photo just to make sure I was sure about the divorce? I asked rhetorically that. Or else what? In the past many years, my attitude towards Gu Shiryan had never been this cold. Gu Shiryan himself knew how important he was to me, and how much I couldn't bear to part with him. He knew better than anyone else. Once I also, because Gu Shiryan and the company's secretary just coincidental arm touched together, was pulled by me for several days. The secretary was also scolded by me to resign. For this reason, Gu Shiryan and I had a cold war for several days. He looked at me with disgust and said to me, "Olina, you are simply a shrew." So Gu Shiryan was deliberately provoking me, so that I could be a shrew again, and then he would satirize me to death. It's just that this time, Gu Shiryan had played it wrong. Gu Shiryan didn't expect me to be so calm and actually growled in annoyance. Alinos, do not regret it. If you have the guts not to give in this time, I can still think highly of you. I don't blame Gu Shiryan for thinking of me this way. When I was in the middle of all this, which time I lost my temper and didn't take the initiative to bow my head and admit that I was wrong. Even if the wrong person is not me, Gu Shiryan just need to stand there. High above, I have to look up to him, but I look up to the neck or broken. I do not want to continue to be so humble. Maybe Gu Shiryan cheating is a 10 evil things, but between us to end, and is not just because of a cheating it. I pursed my lips and answered without much emotion. Let's do it at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon. I know you're fine at that time. I'll wait for you in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. At the end, I didn't forget to remind a sentence. Don't be late. No one will always wait for you. After the phone hung up, I was in deep thought. It seemed that after I married Gu Shiryan, I always waited for him, waiting for him all night on anniversaries, making a table of dishes until they were cold, and waiting for the cream to cave in on my birthday. I always weave myself a Gu Shiryan is just busy time. He will still accompany me through. Just stuck point, just a few minutes, but let me mistakenly think Gu Shiryan is also care about me. I didn't expect the divorce to go smoothly. Gu Shiryan rarely came on time, but let me not expect. When Gu Shiryan saw me, his eyes were dark and uncertain. On the contrary, it is me, the heart is incomparable ease. Gu Shiryan want to speak again and again. I pretended not to understand, straight to the inside. At this moment, Gu Shiryan's cell phone rang. He stopped, but I clearly heard the female voice on the other side of the phone. Brother Shiryan, I was hit by a car. You quickly come to the hospital. I froze and watched Gu Shiryan's footsteps heading out. I couldn't help but be annoyed. Before he rushed out, I yelled, "What? Could it be that you won't even give me 2 minutes? The fact that she can call you proves that she can't die now." Gu Shiryan paused. He looked back at me with eyes like he was looking at something alien. Alino, I don't have time to fool around with you right now. Didn't you call me here on purpose to make me give you a step? Schwer is innocent. Why are you so cold-blooded? Oksuer helped me a lot. If it wasn't for her pulling in investments for me, I wouldn't have made a comeback so quickly. The words fell. Gu Shiryan didn't give me any chance to speak and left in a hurry. I sat down on the stairs, heartbroken. By now, Gu Shiyan was still thinking I was fooling around. In his heart, I was always unbearable. I stood up forlornly and walked on the road like a walking corpse. All I could think of was when Gu Shiyan had said to me, "Thank you for being able to stay with me in my most difficult time." It was originally a plain sentence, but it stirred up 1,000 waves in my heart. Thinking about it now, it didn't seem like it was said to me, but rather like it was said to Gu Shiyan himself. Perhaps at that time he kept hinting to himself that my companionship to him was enough to move him. And Gu Shiyan said that Geng Shui helped him with this matter. Why didn't I know about it? Suddenly, there was a shrill sound of brakes in my ears, and before I could return to my senses, my body was pulled directly to the side, and I fell to the ground in unison with that person. My heart palpitated, and I opened my eyes to see someone so close to me that it made my eyebrows jump. "Are you crazy? Don't want to live?" Ji Zhili blackened his face and angrily yelled at me. Ji Zhili is the big boss of our company. Usually he is always serious, a face-paralyzed face. We don't have much interactions, except during the meeting. He attacked everyone indiscriminately at that time. I was afraid of Ji Zhili in my heart. I did not expect that Ji Zhili would save me. I swallowed my saliva. I do not know why. Tears came out of my eyes. Didn't he see it? Even the explanation seemed too pale and powerless. Ji Zhili helped me up, looked at me, and then looked at the Civil Affairs Bureau. He wrinkled his eyebrows. Here for a divorce? I nodded honestly, not expecting Ji Zhili's face to darken even more. What's the point of getting a divorce for a man? Seeking death. I wanted to explain, but I was dragged away by Ji Zhili, who guided me along the way, chattering on and on, changing his usual seriousness. The setting sun poured on Ji Zhili's face, gilded with a layer of golden light, as if Ji Zhili was quite good-looking. Ji Zhili sent me downstairs and gave me an invitation from his pocket. "Pack up, accompany me to a reception tomorrow. There's a customer who really likes your design." I nodded my head obediently and politely watched Ji Zhili leave again. Looking at the beautifully designed invitation, I let out a deep breath. Recently, because of the divorce matter, I really got burnt out. I haven't worked properly for a long time, and I lost half of my clients, so it's time for me to live a good life. As for the time of the divorce, choose a day to talk about it. After all, the elders have not yet accounted for it. The next day I changed my clothes, went downstairs but found Ji Zhili's car parked in my house downstairs. I was surprised to stand in front of the car, but Ji Zhili walked down. "Let's go. I'll take you with me." Although I didn't know what Ji Zhili meant, I still obediently saddened. As a business magnate, Ji Zhili was surrounded by several people as soon as he entered. They greeted Ji Zhili warmly, and Ji Zhili responded generously to any of them. Ji Zhili and I had just gone in, and when I turned around, I was surprised to see Gu Shiyan and Geng Shui. This is the first time I've seen Geng Shui's face. It's really Gu Shiyan's favorite type. I have to say, Gu Shiyan hides it really well. After 7 years of marriage, I didn't even know there was a Geng Shui. Geng Shui met my gaze and smiled smugly at me. All I could think was that she was stupid. Geng Shui walked slowly towards me. She deliberately lowered her voice and raised her eyebrows. "My place in Brother Shiyan's heart will always be more important than you. Yesterday, I was just a simple bitter trick, and Brother Shiyan was able to leave you behind to find me." I snorted a laugh. "Maybe your Brother Shiyan didn't tell you that he divorced me yesterday. If you hadn't made that scene, we might have divorced smoothly." Geng Shui's face darkened to the naked eye. The champagne glass in her hand was in a death grip. I shrugged indifferently, the corners of my mouth lifting into a smile. "Maybe your Brother Shiyan has you to thank for this, otherwise he wouldn't have an excuse to run away." Geng Shui's face flushed red with anger, and she raised her glass to splash it at me when suddenly a hand pulled me away and the champagne fell to the floor. I turned around and it was Ji Zhili. "Is everything all right?" I don't know if it's my illusion, but I see the worry in Ji Zhili's eyes. I shook my head numbly. This little episode caused no small amount of agitation. Quite a few people looked over. Gu Shiyan was originally communicating with someone else. After seeing me and Geng Shui, he also walked over. Ji Zhili let out a cold smile and looked at Gu Shiyan. Mind your own, people. Don't spill your guts in a place like this. Gu Shiyan looked at Geng Shui in disbelief, and Geng Shui aggressively came over to Gu Shiyan's side. "Ah, sister doesn't seem to like me very much, saying that I'm shameless and seducing you." I just smiled faintly and didn't explain. "Oh, Miss Lin? Why are you here?" What a coincidence. Before Gu Shiyan could kick in, Mr. Li walked over. This Mr. Li was the person who just climbed into a conversation with Gu Shiyan, a very powerful investor in the business world. According to reason, a designer like me wouldn't have any connection with an investment predator, and Gu Shiyan thought of exactly that, which made him even more puzzled. "Mr. Li, you know her?" Mr. Li smiled. "What are you talking about? If it wasn't for Ms. Lin, I wouldn't have known you, and if she hadn't always dragged me around to spar with me before, her sincerity impressed me, and that's why I invested in you." As soon as the words fell, Gu Shiyan and Geng Shui's faces looked good. Geng Shui faced Gu Shiyan's questioning eyes and lowered her head sheepishly, and Gu Shiyan looked at me with complicated eyes. That's right, when Gu Shiyan's career was at its most difficult, I just happened to learn about Mr. Li's identity, and I entrusted a lot of people to talk to Mr. Li, and I also know that only Mr. Li can help Gu Shiyan. At first, it was difficult to get close to Mr. Li. If I hadn't helped his wife design a piece of jewelry, I would have met Mr. Li. I knew that Mr. Li liked to drink, and even though he drank until his stomach bled, he still accompanied him. I didn't realize that all of this credit had been taken by Geng Shui under false pretenses. Mr. Li left after exchanging a few pleasantries with me, and Geng Shui pulled Gu Shiyan to try to explain, but was shrugged off by Gu Shiyan. Geng Shui stood there at a loss for words, and Gu Shiyan only said, "Get lost." Only then did Geng Shui reluctantly leave, looking at my eyes but sudden poison. "I have no waves, a scum, a bitch, should have been locked up." "Oh, sorry, I really didn't know it was you." When I was about to leave, Gu Shiyan suddenly pulled me back, his complex expression. I hooked my lips and smiled. "Mr. Gu, do you have time today? Can we go for a divorce?" Gu Shiyan clenched his fists and looked at me incredulously. "Are you serious?" "Why?" It just so happened that Ji Zhili walked towards me. I held Ji Zhili's arm intimately and laughed graciously, because I found someone I really like. I clearly felt Ji Zhili's body stiffen. I was afraid of revealing myself and blinked at Ji Zhili, casting a pleading gaze. Gu Shiyan was frantic and tried to pull me away, but Ji Zhili blocked me. "Mr. Gu, please stop harassing my girlfriend." Gu Shiyan froze, but he seemed to be holding on to his last shred of hope as he waved at me, his tone softening. "Oh, come here, let's not make a scene, okay? Do you really not have any feelings for me anymore?" I clearly remembered, whether it was when I was married to Gu Shiyan or when I was in school, whenever Gu Shiyan made me angry, and when I gambled that I would no longer care about him, he would use a gentle tone of voice to treat me like this, beckoning me towards him, and my heart instantly softened. Perhaps in Gu Shiyan's heart, I was nothing more than a dog, and as long as he was willing to spend a little bit of effort for me, even if it was fake, I was willing to compromise. My eyes instantly went cold. Between us, the last thing we have to talk about is our feelings. "But my family still owes your family a favor. I said I would pay it back for the rest of my life." I'm afraid this sentence is the funniest joke I've heard lately, and I snort a laugh. "What you owe me is more than a one-time favor. And where did you put me when you slept with someone else? Who are you pretending to be affectionate for now? Doesn't it feel disgusting?" I set out all the grudges I had accumulated for a long time. I no longer cared about how Gu Shi banquet felt, and dragged Ji Zhili away. After leaving the banquet, I let out a long breath of relief. only to remember that I was still holding Jili's hand and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, Mr. G. It's me who took advantage of you. I just want to get divorced earlier. Jili is a person with strong self-esteem. I took advantage of him. I was really afraid that Jili would be angry. In case he fired me, it would not be good. If I keep utilizing, it's not impossible. Jili's nice voice came out. Although it was very low, it was still captured by me, ear-shattering. I was stunned in place. I couldn't believe it. I looked at Jili. He had a smile in his eyes. That face was as good-looking as ever. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My eyes fell motionless on Jili. Jili added a sentence. If you don't understand, I'll explain it to you, I said. Lene, I like you. I can let you use it for the rest of your life. This sudden confession confused my mind. I didn't answer immediately. I just ran away without any luck. I remembered that Jili and I didn't have any excessive communication in the company, not even contact. Even in the gathering, I would hide far away. I'm not a very social person, more like I want to be a transparent person. Perhaps the closest time with Jili isn't a time to talk about customers. At that time, I was still an assistant. My teacher suddenly USB flash drive problems, the contents of which I did. She could not adjust the content to. Then there is no way to continue to speak. As a matter of urgency, I went straight to the stage and finished a whole set of concepts in a flowing manner. And Jili, sitting right next to me, his eyes fell on my face for an instant. Afterwards, although Jili didn't say anything, he promoted me directly to designer. Could it have been at that time? For so many years, all my sight had been on Gu Shiyan, and before him, my heart and eyes couldn't tolerate any other man. I had even less idea how to get along with other men. It's no wonder I fled in such a mess. Until I returned home, everything was like a dream that I couldn't digest. Jili's message was then sent. I opened my cell phone with my hands in a frenzy, and there was just a simple sentence written on it. First solve your own things before coming to work. With pay, I do not want to be a junior. The implication is that I should get a divorce. Looking at this sentence, I can't help but laugh out loud. It turns out that Jili also has such a cute side. Probably Gu Shiyan told the elders about our divorce. First, my mom persuaded me, counting Gu Shiyan's good points, nagging me to the point that I was tired of it. In the end, I said faintly, "Mom, Gu Shiyan slept with another woman." My mom froze, was silent for a long time, and directly made a scene, naturally, not with me, but went to Gu's house to make a scene. For so many years, I've only talked about Gu Shiyan's goodness in front of my mom to keep her from worrying, and even if Gu Shiyan hadn't been good, I'd have made it up, and there's no way my mom could have known that Gu Shiyan wasn't good for me. My mom's character is already spirited and won't let me be wronged. Overnight, everyone in the Gu family knew about the bastard things Gu Shiyan had done, and while apologizing to me, they also told me to give Gu Shiyan a chance. This time, my heart won't be soft, and I'll speak to them in a unified voice. I won't forgive the cheating. The Gu family didn't have the face to continue persuading them, so I directly put the word out to the Gu family. If Gu Shiyan doesn't come, I'll sue directly. The divorce went smoothly, only this time Gu Shiyan, not as bossy as he was at first. At the door he looked at me, his tone softened, full of begging. I was wrong, don't leave me, okay? Oh. I laughed, obviously cruel words, but lost the spitefulness. Gu Shiyan, I gave you countless opportunities, 7 years. I thought I could move you. When I was aggrieved, you turned a blind eye. When I was injured and hospitalized, never see your people. I immensely cherish what belongs between us, but you discarded it as if it were your own. Such a high and mighty you. What makes you think that as long as you bow your head I have to forgive you? I bit my lip, a fishy sweetness in my mouth. I stared at Gu Shiyan seriously like that for the past 7 years. I always hoped that Gu Shiyan's eyes could fall on me, even if only for a moment. I've been humble for a long, long time, and any random person can take away Gu Shiyan's attention. With Gu Shiyan, I felt like I was the worst person in the world, but I couldn't escape, like a trapped beast that couldn't find a gap. It seems that Gu Shuryan loves me now, but only I know that the inextricable link between the two of us is nothing more than my single-minded devotion, my family's kindness to his family, and without that, it's nothing. Saying these words, remembering myself at the time, my heart ached to the point of shaking. I didn't even notice that Ji Zhili had already stood behind me, holding my hand, the warmth of his palm coming through, spreading all over my body. Go, I'll wait for you here. Ji Zhili's voice was gentle, but it managed to pass through my ears and fall into my heart. In the past days, it was always me who was saying such words to Gu Shuryan. I'll wait for you at home. I'll wait for you at the restaurant. I waited for you at the intersection. Every time I waited, I didn't wait. This time I'm finally being waited for too, and I won't let that person wait for nothing. Gu Shuryan wanted to say something else, probably because he saw Ji Zhili. He understood what is true love, and finally by me. When we came out, I saw those eager eyes. Ji Zhili waved at me, and I walked towards him. Gu Shuryan called out to me, "Oh, I am sorry that I delayed you for 7 years. I agreed to divorce, not that I don't love you anymore. I just don't have the face to continue to consume you. I hope you are happy." I turned back, relieved smile, but the tone is also cold. You delayed me, and is not that short 7 years? 7 years is not enough. In the time Gu Shuryan could not see, I liked him for a long, long time. Gu Shuryan was frozen in place, but I took Ji Zhili's hint. I am sure that Gu Shuryan will never meet anyone like me in his life. I have given everything for him, and I have fought for him, and I have been wronged, and I have held back. Do I regret it? In fact, there is no. I am generous for their own heartbeat to pay the bill, the days to come. I just hope that I will not make mistakes again. Ji Zhili, seriously driving the car, suddenly turned back to me and said seriously, "The next time you come here, it will be with me, but I don't want us to come twice." I couldn't help it, but my heart was still filled with warmth. It turns out that the real being loved is able to feel than had been with Gu Shuryan together with the sufferings, that originally his love is not deep enough. I will not go to deny any person, even if there has been a bad past. If I want to hold hands, I will not be afraid of pain. The first time I saw Lin Oeka, she ventured out. Directly a cup of coffee spilled on my body. She was like a deer, kept apologizing, kept wiping me. She didn't even look me in the face until I left. At that time I thought, in the end, what kind of ungrateful this kind of daredevil are recruited to the company. Later, I always intentionally or unintentionally looked towards the outside of the office. Lina was very hardworking. She was a gifted player, and even more hardworking. Every time she came the earliest and left the latest. Once I had a whim to test Lin Oeka's working ability, so I tampered with the staff's USB flash drive, and Lin Oeka stood out without any hesitation when everyone in the conference room was staring at each other in disbelief. I listened carefully to Lin Oeka's explanation. Every detail, every specialty. She talked about it. For a moment, I was impressed by Lin A with grave withering above, so she was not that adventurous. For a period of time Lin Oeka didn't come to the company. I have no reason to be annoyed in my heart, but when I went out, I actually ran into a lost soul. Lin Oeka nearly hit by a car. This person, how come she is still so adventurous? When I learned that Lin Oeka was getting a divorce, there was actually a trace of joy in my heart. It turned out that I really liked Lin A with grave withering above. But fortunately, Lin A with grave withering above is easy to satisfy. She just needs a lot of love. It doesn't matter. I have more than enough.